Hello team! I thought I'd comment on this news that the new Archbishop of Canterbury, that's the leader of the Anglican Church, has been named, and she's a woman. Surprise, surprise. I did say when Justin Welby, the detestable Justin Welby, left the role a few months back, it would be a woman or a black person. How can we guess these things? How can we see into the future? Well, I think it's obvious. It's because the whole of our once nation has been gutted out and all of our institutions have been reimagined through the image of the liberal regime. There's little fanfare being made that the leader of the Anglican Church is now a woman, and that's because they want it to be normalised. Probably is normalised by now. But it is a massive betrayal of the sacred order, which is replete in the Christian tradition as well as general traditionalism. You know, that the male is the spiritual leader, he's the guide of the community, the protector, and that we turn away from sacred order to the woman really is a sign of liberal modernity. Now, I think this picture I've got on your screen now sums up everything you need to know about the Anglican Church if you don't know much about it. This is the new Archbishop, by the way, as you can see there. In one of the churches, looking sweet and so on. Her name's Sarah Mullally, I believe. But anyway, why I raise this image is because this is just what Anglican churches are like. They are soft, they're gentle, they're very sweet, but boy, do they have a shadow side. And that shadow side is, of course, naive, deluded, and hyper-liberal. And liberal, as you'll know, if you watch my channel regularly, I believe is the precursor to cruelty because it destroys sacred order. That leads to the gutting out of the nation, the spirit, and the sacred order, and so on. And chaos will ensue. Of course, these people would see it that way. They're so soft and they're so sweet. You couldn't be mean to them if you saw them. I mean, they're so soft. But the problem with this is, of course, is this woman, like the Anglican Church in general, which, to be honest, has been spiritually feminine for a long, long time now, are totally incapable of dealing with the harsh realities of life. One of the first things Sarah Mullally said was, hatred and racism cannot tear us apart. Come on, guys. The same old liberal messaging there. Who she means by us, I don't know, because she said this in reference to an attack where a Muslim attacked a load of Jews. But of course, it's the same old thing. She's just a mouthpiece for the liberal regime. It's cliched nonsense, really. And it's symbolic of how, you know, the Anglican Church is not going to help us here in dealing with the brutality of modern reality. They're just going to see the issues we face with mass immigration, cultural and national dispossession, and so on, demographic change as all good things, you know, because they're tolerant and loving people. Really what they are is sheltered and naive people, and I really do believe that. I don't think most people in the Anglican Church are bad. I just think they're extremely deluded and extremely naive and extremely soft, and they're being taken for a ride by some quite radical people. They will find that out, but unfortunately, the hard way. They need protecting, really, the people in the Anglican Church. They really do. But if you try, of course, you know, you'd be the toxic bigot. They really are the sorts of folks that don't help themselves, to put it mildly. But as you know, if you watch the channel regularly, one of my big passions in life is the development of men. You know, I think that's absolutely vital in any healthy culture, any civilization. You have to take an interest in your men, especially the young men. You've got to teach them how to deal with the hardships of life, whether that's physical hardships, the danger that you face out there, or, of course, the inner hardships, the things we have to face, you know, temptations, lusts, pleasures, anger, all the things that feel like they give you some sense of meaning and light in the short term, but pull you down to hell in the long run. We have not had any spiritual protection there as a society for a long time, which is why we're falling apart, we're being eaten alive externally and internally. And while I don't want to be mean to this lady, but do you really think Sarah Mullally's going to fix that? I mean, all of the poor men that are looking in their roots right now, especially the young men, thinking, I want to find out who I am. I want to learn my cultural coordinates. I want to find what it means to live the sacred way, you know? And they go to a church and it's, you know, tolerance and kindness and let's all hold hands and sing for gay people and BLM. Sure, that's going to be what they're looking for. So these people, unfortunately, as sweet as they are, will view true male leadership as toxic and probably bigoted. So we are in real trouble. But look, we have been for a while. You know, the sacred order collapsed a long time before this in the Western world. Now, again, I think many people, unfortunately, will start to turn away from the Anglican Church. That's been happening for a while. There is a turn to Christianity, but I think, you know, that's going to start to really get ripped apart, and it's a real tragedy because, as I say, especially young men are looking for guidance, and they need to be aided in their development to be strong leaders of the family, of the community. You know, you have 100,000 strong men, you'll be surprised at what they can achieve. They can turn a country around, they really can, but what help do we give them? None. It's appalling. Anyway, they'll start now looking to Catholicism, and who can blame them, and the trad Catholic Church, but it doesn't seem to be much better over there either. I've been warning about this. I don't mean any disrespect to any Catholics. The Catholic tradition is incredible. It's probably the greatest tradition of all religions. It's so vast. It has an intellectual tradition, a mystic tradition, a philosophical tradition, a political tradition, both left and right. It's vast. And it really is. I think you can see why many traditionalists do have sympathy for it, because it has this sacred order which is really kept from even pre-Christian times. If you go to the Vatican, you can see that. But in this day and age, it's going the way of the Anglican Church. We had Pope Leo recently blessing a block of ice while these sort of, pagan environmentalist liberals started, hollering and warbling some song. You thought, this isn't Catholic. I mean, this is like the Anglican Church. What are they doing, these nutcases? But anyway, this is way of the world. It seems to be falling into modernity. I think Arnold Schwarzenegger was there as well. Well, Arnie's doing there, bloody idiot. But anyway, the point is, I'm very worried about the Catholic Church as well. I think it's deep enough to probably go through the fires of modernity, but it's going to get ripped to shreds. Anglican Church will probably be totally destroyed, but Catholic, yes, it's in a bad way as well. And of course, this means many people will turn to Orthodoxy. It's probably the best of the bunch, I think, at the moment. It's held on to the sacred order the best. Mystic tradition is strong. It's very based. It doesn't budge for the world. It's the most admirable, in my mind. But there's a massive problem, with the Orthodox tradition, as I've discussed before, and that's that it's Eastern. And I really respect it. I like how they have their national expressions: Serbian Orthodox Church, Ukrainian, Russian, Greek. I think that's awesome. Good for them. You should celebrate your people, your nation, how it interacts with the faith. That's a wonderful thing. But as someone who's been to Orthodox Church many times, you do feel a bit left out. When they're speaking a foreign language, there is a part of you thinks it's wonderful, and I really respect them, but it's just not mine, and I can't lie that it is. And that is a problem. And I think it's going to be hard to take Orthodoxy on board en masse unless there is some sort of English awakening, or at least Western European version that many of us will feel at home with. But of course, that's decades to really implement that in a meaningful way. So to my mind, it's very hard when we look at the state of Christianity at the moment, even though there is this yearning for our roots, our foundations, for something strong, both spiritually and physically, for us to step into. It's just not there. That's the harsh reality. I say that as someone who's I'm Christian esoteric, really, and traditionalist, so I'm not mainline Christian, but I say that as someone with deep sympathy for Christianity. The harsh reality is it's just not in a state right now to provide what we need it to, because it's ruled by liberals. It's been completely gutted out. Now, it doesn't mean everyone in the church is bad. There are wonderful people in the church, but the power structure is very much part of the overarching liberal ideology of the age. And that's just a harsh reality we've got to face if we want to come to a better tomorrow. And in the Anglican Church, God, it's probably the worst of them all. I mean, it really is in a bad way. And at this point, I think many of us have to accept that the pagans and some of the right are making harsh but true criticisms of the church. The pagans make the point that, look, the church will sell you out for this liberal universalism. And to be fair, it will. I wouldn't say maybe 10 times out of 10, but 8, 9 times out of 10, it probably will. I think they misunderstand, in my view, the Christ's universalism. We're universal in the spirit, in the love of God, but not in our manifestation. The modern church, I think, gets that all mixed up, really, because they're listening to atheists and secularists. So they try and play, but we're just all the same. And this, again, it plays into the ideology of the market. It doesn't matter if you're born in England or Timbuktu. You're basically, exactly the same in modern Britain, and the church sort of backs that ideology. Broadly speaking, again, there are counter cases, but they're very played down and even excommunicated in extreme circumstances. And that is true. I think that the criticism there, you have to acknowledge it. It's legitimate. Second to that, the church itself, Christ is a deep figure, and you can explore him in right-wing ways and left-wing ways, but he transcends all politics. But at the moment, only his sort of softer, more liberal side, lefty side is allowed to be expressed. So when these men go to the church, some women as well, looking for order, they're very often only getting one side of the story, and that's all that's allowed. So again, they're just not going to find what they really need, the soul sustenance, the order that we need. Of course, there's the other criticism, the mainline traditionalist criticism of the church, that it's too lunar, and that's Avolian language, of course, too lunar in its structure. Some would argue even from the beginning of Christianity. I think that's a bit harsh. I think you can find many heroic journeys in the early Christians, who face real brutal experiences, real powerful expressions of faith in horrible situations, were willing to go and fight and die in just unbelievable savagery that was done to them. But, it's without doubt now that the church has moved to a very, very lunar expression, which essentially means feminine, really, in shorthand, soft, feminine, contemplative. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that. It's still a beautiful expression. You can still get a lot from the contemplative tradition. But as the traditionalists would say, you also need the kind of warrior tradition. And that's a warrior in the enlightened sense of the word, a warrior engaging in true, just action. It's the more masculine path. Now, I would argue you can find that expression in Christianity. Some would say, well, that's because it's blended with the European warrior tradition. It's a video for another time. But I do think it's there. But it's obviously played down massively by modernity and has been for, many, many decades now. So, of course, we are at a point where it looks to me like Anglicanism is really falling into just complete nothingness now. It's totally lost its roots. I hope that the other mainline traditions can hold on. I think Orthodoxy and Catholicism are strong enough, that Catholicism especially is going to take a battering. But all of this does say something to me, which again is just the key theme in all of the videos I do. And that's that, look, I think all of this is horrible to witness, but it's a precursor to the rebirth. And in a way, things have to get so humiliated, they're completely gutted out, there's just nothing left. Now, when nothing is left in a worldly sense, that allows the true spirit, the true sacred order to return. And at the moment, what's left of the carcass of the Anglican Church is being ripped apart by liberal ideology, and soon will come the trans ideology, which has already got its teeth in, and the rest of it. But like I say, very very often, what seems like the darkest hour is the precursor to the dawn. And I'd be lying if I said I knew exactly how things are going to develop in the future. I very much don't. But my gut instinct, quite strong gut instinct, is, it is the precursor to the rebirth, where we do have a new religious understanding, because what people are yearning for, I think we don't understand this because we've lost touch with sacred order. Very often what we're yearning for within is the sacred order itself trying to find fruition. So the inspiration that the individual young male has to think, where are my foundations? How does this make sense in terms of my soul, my nation, my mind, my community? That's the sacred order itself working through you, trying to find its home again. The problem is it's lost the central power structure to connect to and riff on and take you through that magical spiritual journey of initiation and learning. Again, there are good people in the church, but they are few and far between. If you do go to an Anglican church, you're just going to get, softy stuff, bowl-haired, lesbian women reading out the Guardian, that sort of thing. And even if it's not literally that yet, it's in that direction. So the point is that almost has to play through, and then I think there can be a reawakening, and it will be different than what we've ever known. I think it will have some similarities. It will be still rooted in the ancient wisdom, but we have the infrastructure there of a vast church, which just isn't being used at the moment. A lot of it, I think, will be usurped, but I do think bits will still be able to be reawakened. But I do believe, all of this is part of a massive death and rebirth process that's going on. In terms of the soul, I think it's true. The collective soul I'm talking to. In terms of the external traditions, which are really the manifestation of the collective soul, i.e. the church, I think that's got to fall apart and almost be reawakened from the ground up. But I also think there's going to be new things, new understandings of who we are as a people, how that relates to the universal spirit, new understandings of what love means in a masculine and feminine frame, deeper journeys of sacred order that we have to undergo collectively and individually, deeper journeys of initiation that are really challenging. You're not just going to go and dunk yourself in some water on one Sunday. It's going to be harsh and you're going to have to prove yourself, and it's going to be rough, and we need it to be rough to make stronger men. And with that, I even think there could be new borders down the line. I really do believe that. New national borders and so on, because I think things are going to get so ripped up. But of course, all of that is going to give birth to the new Western man, to my mind. And that man, he needs to be solid in his heart and soul, true, connected to sacred order, a good man, a sort of men that we can rally behind and be like their leaders, and I want to learn their way. That for me is the only thing to look to now in the long-term future. Ancient wisdom for a new age, of course. These are some of my thoughts. As always, do let me know what you think down below. If you are interested in these spiritual themes of personal transformation, do check out The Sacred Way. That's my sister channel on that. You can also join the Substack where we discuss these things. Got a call coming up tomorrow for the members, actually, if you want to join that. And subscribe to this channel as well and let me know your thoughts below. Take care all, and Godspeed. Keep the faith.